Hey everybody, welcome to the Green Room for Disrupt TV, where we introduce our guests in reverse order. I'm Ray Wang with Constellation Research. I got my compatriot, I'd call it, Vala Afshar, his co-host, co-founder, and of course, he's with Salesforce, and of course, our amazing producer, Elle, and of course, our guest. So we're going to ask you in reverse order where you're coming in from, what we are talking about today, and it's definitely not talking about anything that is not interesting. So, Leslie, where are we coming in from, and what are we talking about?
I'm here in Armonk, New York. Thanks so much for having me. And we're going to talk about the fallacy of persuasion.
Ooh, we can't wait to get there. We'll talk about the book as well. John, where are you coming in from? What are we talking about?
I'm in Golden, Colorado today, just at the foothills of the Colorado Mountains, and I'm going to talk about the ideas in this wonderful new book with my name on the cover. It's called Break the Rules.
Very, very cool. And of course, we interview authors and amazing CEOs. Ryan, what are we talking about today, and where are you coming in from?
Hello, coming in from Truckee, California. Great to be with you guys today. Excited to talk about community, enterprise software, and of course, we're going to talk probably a little bit about some AI. That's a topic I think people want to talk about these days.
Very, very cool. Everybody's in the mountains except for Vala and I. What's going on? We've got these things wrong. So, all right. Well, with that, I'll turn it back to you, Elle. We'll do the countdown and, of course, kick off the show.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on DisrupTV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on X at DisrupTV Show. Send Ray, myself, and our distinguished guests your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them live. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host, Ray Wang. He's the CEO, founder of Constellation Research. He's the best-selling author of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I see Ray just about every day on TV, Yahoo Finance, Fox Business, Bloomberg, CNBC. In my humble opinion, he's one of the top futurists to follow on X at RWAG0. Welcome, Ray Wang, to DisrupTV.
Hey, thanks a lot with Vala Afshar here. He's the Chief Digital Evangelist for Salesforce. He's also the author of multiple books, including Boundless, a new mindset for unlimited business success, and a #1 seller on Amazon. More importantly, executives around the world pay attention to every one of his inspirational and thoughtful tweets. And when he's not keynoting or writing or leading events at Salesforce, you can find him speaking on business TV outlets such as Bloomberg, and of course, posting insightful analysis on ZDNet and oftentimes about this show. So with that, we've got amazing guests from CEOs to authors. And who do we have to kick it off today?
It's such a privilege to get the best and brightest CEOs in the world to come and disrupt, and there's not an exception here. Ryan Aytay is the Chief Executive Officer of Tableau, where he brings more than 27 years of experience working in technology and strategy, including 2 years as Tableau's Chief Revenue Officer, running its global and distribution organization. Since joining Salesforce in 2007, Ray, I thought I was smart when I joined in 2015. Ryan joined in 7. Ryan has served in a series of executive leadership positions, including Chief Business Officer, and roles that span product management, alliances, strategy, and global corporate development. Prior to Salesforce, Ryan worked as management consultant for Deloitte Consulting and as investment banking analyst for Piper Jaffray. You can follow Ryan on X at Ryan Aytay, A-Y-T-A-Y. Welcome, Ryan, to DisrupTV.
Great to be here. Good to see you guys. Happy Friday. I was just realizing too, you're talking about the number of years. I guess it looks like I have a lot more gray hair than you guys do. So something, you have some magic tricks.
Maybe life of a CEO. Life of a CEO.
The secret
Exactly.
is you've got to make that transition from like not make the transition from executive ranks to CEO. Then you'll survive.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
kidding.
good wisdom.
But it's a very important point. Like we do a lot of learnings and lessons learned from people out there who are actually doing leadership changes. And they learn from the best leaders. And I think the question for you is, right, you were at Salesforce for a long time. And Tableau came in 2019. Now you've been CEO there for a year. People want to learn, right? Like, how do you make that transition? How do you go from your L1 to L0? Like, you're the man, you're the person that's actually making the shots. So what lessons do you have that you can share with other executives who might be looking to make that move going forward? Things like they can do, whether it's like skills they should learn or leadership lessons or different techniques or things that you've learned from your other mentors as well.
Yeah. Great question, especially for a Friday. So I think, when I look at this, I've had many roles at the company and feel very grateful and fortunate for that. And I think one of the things I've always tried to do is try to be curious about, what do I not know? What do I not, what are the things that I can learn from? And, that has taken me through the M&A team, alliances, as you mentioned, product management, and, getting into sort of this chief revenue officer at Tableau, which is where I started. It was really a great opportunity for me to learn the business, to learn our customers, to speak to them in all shapes and sizes globally. Spent a lot of time on airplanes, which sometimes increases also the gray hair thing. But at the end of the day, it's all about being curious and getting out there and trying to learn the business. There's no better way, regardless of which business you're in, than to listen to your customers. And I think, I spent what was it, like November 21 or sorry, November 21, kind of when I started in the chief revenue officer role at Tableau. I spent a lot of time with our employees, our partners, but really with our customers. Just what's going on, what's working, what's not working, and how do we really improve your experience as part of the Salesforce family? And we call that at Salesforce and Tableau deep listening. And I think that is one of the key things that any role you start and anything you're about to go do is you have to be aware of what's happening and not just assume that you know the answer, because oftentimes you only know your own perspective, and having kind of those varied experiences and inputs, I think, make a big impact and a big difference.
You are a hands-on CEO, and I guess you have to be, because when you talk about community and family, one of Tableau's greatest assets, it's its community, and it's great. Listen to this, 4 million strong. So I see on social channels you jet setting around the world, deeply listening, being connected to this family and it's called Data Fam. Everyone, hashtag Data Fam, and you'll see all the vibrancy and the love that these 4 million ambassadors and visionaries have about data. And of course, in an AI-powered economy, you have to have that. How do you build a 4 million member community? And how do you, as the CEO, as the lead champion advocate of this technology, make so much time and have so much energy? And maybe that's a little bit the white hair. I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you keep this growing and thriving?
So I think this is one of the really unique things about Tableau, if I just be specific for a minute, and that's ultimately, we think about why Salesforce acquired the company, is this very dynamic and powerful community of now 4 million members, and that's been growing, double digit year over year. The community is a really big part of the business, and I think it is Data Fam, hashtag Data Fam, as you said, but this is also true in Salesforce with our Trailblazers. And I think, if I shift across any business, a community is an opportunity for your customers, for your partners to learn from each other. And that's why we have things like our Tableau conference, which is really built for the community. And, if you go back in time to Tableau, which has been around for more than 20 years, the community helped to bring, training materials. The community helped, to learn from each other and really help people transition into the world of self-service analytics, which was sort of the, we call it wave 2. Now we're in this more personalization and consumerization wave, which is all about AI. Well, the community is helping these people move in that direction. So it's a support system, it's an ecosystem. And my job is really, again, to listen to them, and because if we just are sort of like, our kind of focus is only doing what we think we should do and not getting that outside perspective, I think we run the risk of, making a mistake ultimately, because the community is the most in tune with what's happening. AI, data and analytics, chief data officers, what's actually happening, what product requirements do we need to be thinking about? And so the community is like this heartbeat, and we need to do a lot for them, and they do a lot for us. It's a partnership at the end of the day. It's critical for any business, right? Any strong, some communities are more known than others, but the best products, have a strong community and they talk about it. And I really, one of the best parts of my job is I get to talk to the community members and, listen to them. We don't always do it perfect. I can tell you that. We get a lot of feedback that we need to change things. I like to run our products, our products that are coming out, future things, which of course we've got Dreamforce coming up. So we're already talking to them about, here's what's coming. They give us feedback. They give us feedback on the keynote. They give us a bunch of feedback. And we try to make adjustments to things. We don't always get it right, but ultimately that is really what makes a big difference and is a key differentiator.
Watching the conference you referenced last month in San Diego, first of all, seeing 9,000 people just loving data is awesome. But then you get a sense of the generosity that's part of the soul and the DNA of Tableau, because you have Tableau Public. You get this free platform for people to explore, and they create and they publicly share information to make people more aware. And these folks they're talking about ocean cleanup. They're talking about affordable childcare. They're talking about climate change. So the vibrancy comes from they care about something. They use data to make others aware, and that just has a gravitational pull because there's a goodness to it. It's just one example, the Tableau Public, that to me is part of that secret sauce of building this multi-million community. Good advice to other CEOs listening: demonstrate generosity, and you'll have this power of pull and power of vibrancy and purpose, and that can set you apart. Sorry, Ray. Sorry, I know you have a question.
No, not at all. I mean, that's an important point, right? Like we talk about data for good, right? That's part of the whole data fam movement, right? And of course, that bias for action is really important. And so let's take that bias for action as we move into that era of AI. What do we do? How do we engage customers and communities the right way? A lot of people do it really poorly, and I think there's some lessons learned as you build community. It's really important to be able to think about, what are the topics people are interested, or how to drive that community in place. And there are some bad things you can do as well. So maybe you can share some advice and in terms of not just community management, but leading conversations in community.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we just kind of look at the sort of community aspect of it, is you just have to be authentic, right? You just have to walk into these situations. And as we talk about listening, well, what do you do once you receive information? Is you have to act on it. And, some things like at Tableau conference, we announced the ability to basically have a personal edition where you can, get Tableau for free, essentially on Tableau Public, where we have 9.5 million visualizations now. You can access that for free. That was a gift to the community so they can do more and they can make more impact to the world with data, the ocean cleanup, low cost childcare, et cetera, or high cost childcare, I should say. Those are the examples we gave. But when I think about AI, right, we're all in this AI journey. We're all kind of deeply down this path. Consumerization is the first step. We're all, fastest application, right, in terms of like ChatGPT and other tools to get to 100+ million users, and that's great. But how does that relate to the enterprise? I think is the new thing we need to think about. And I think what's great about generative AI is we've got a lot of momentum. We're in this era. The scary part is to do it right in a business or in an enterprise. You need to make sure that you have a great data strategy. You need to make sure you're not sending your company information out into the open internet. And that's the journey that I think we can go on with our community to teach businesses and to teach organizations and nonprofits and others to be careful. I think it's really easy to jump in, right? We saw this with social media. If you go back, a few years ago or multiple years, where we just jumped right in. And I think, there's some great things, but some not great things about social media. And I think when you think about generative AI in the enterprise, it's important to think about what's my data foundation? Do I have a trusted experience? And that's what we talk about a lot at Salesforce, which is our trust layer. Are we making sure that your company's data, your organization's data is safe? And before you kind of send it out to some random LLM, we need to make sure that it's safe and it's not going out. And you're still able to get something of value back, because it's great to just start using, a large language model, but is it valuable? And is it providing you some kind of return on investment that's actually helpful to your business? So this is a lot of the things that we talk about with our community, and they're learning and we're learning, and I think we're in a learning environment now. I feel like it's kind of never really been more critical than right now. And I've been in the business long enough to know that like this is an inflection point of, it's like we're rapidly moving, but we need to make sure we don't take missteps, and our customers don't take missteps as well in that process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, once in the wild, it's never coming back. So
yeah. So Ryan, this is the portion where I want you to put your futurist hat on, because the nature of the radical transparency in which you lead the company and how you share with the data family. Again, I encourage everybody, #DataFam. You're going to see videos, white papers, a lot of content about the future of analytics, data, and impact of AI, as you mentioned. You referenced Wave 2 earlier. We talked about at the conference, there was a discussion of Wave 1, which was full service. Wave 2 was self-service. Wave 3 is more personalized. And to my surprise, you spent quite a bit of time talking about Wave 4. But before we go there, and this is hopefully part of where you see analytics and AI in business 3 to 5 years from now, you did talk about challenges. You said there are 4 challenges that our customers are sharing with us. First of all, track data. Only 29% of applications are integrated. So 7 out of 10 are isolated and in silos. People still don't trust data, which is understandable given the speed and the velocity of analytics and data. Insights are often overlooked, and people can't reuse their work. So there is a lack of composability and reuse there. And then a lot of talk was about this 4th wave, which we're going to hopefully announce at Dreamforce. But can you talk about this 4th wave and maybe just where you see, promising use of AI several years down the road?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think we're in first of all, we have to deliver on what customers need right now. And we know, we've delivered some products, we have them in market, they're very useful, they're tangible. Tableau Pulse, for example, that's a product that's generally available. We have Einstein Copilot for Tableau as well, that's now available. These products have rapid adoption and are very useful in the moment. But as we move to the next wave, if you will, as we talk about, the future of Tableau is really about kind of going beyond just this sort of experience of seeing and understanding your data, beyond sort of that standard business intelligence experience. And what I mean by that is, as you said, many companies have data. I talked to a company, a large bank, I won't name the bank, but ultimately a large international bank that had, somewhere over 1,000 different data warehouses and data lakehouses, right? How can you actually make sense of all this data? That is the number one key to having a great AI strategy, is making sure that your data house is in order. And then as we go through that process, right, you have to have a semantic layer, right? You have to have the ability to say, okay, well, how do I make sense of all this information? And my analyst and my CEO and my CRO and these different people have to see the same information, but in different ways. So again, you have to have kind of that kind of bringing all the data together, unifying it with something like our data cloud, and then our semantic layer, which is a part of our new product, that is a key part of that as well. And then of course you want to surface these insights in places like Slack and other applications, bringing those insights to where you work. And then finally, what hasn't been in our industry is this concept of a marketplace. Why can't I share the best practices in my business internally, right? So kind of this like App Store concept, and of course externally as well, like with our community members. If there's a great visualization or data prep, data calculation, whatever it may be, semantic model that I want to share, I should be able to do that in my 4 walls of my business, also externally. And that is a radical change. And all of this is being built natively with AI, meaning that a semantic model will be powered in a more relevant way with AI. Similarly, bringing insights into the flow of work, whether it's natural language, which is just kind of, typical AI, if you will, predictive AI to tell me what's going to happen next. But then, of course, what are the insights that I need to know about now? And can I ask can I ask questions of my business in the flow of work in real time? That is how the future will change. And it's going to really kind of bring truth to what the vision has always been in our industry, which is, how do I make better decisions?
Yeah.
And how do I actually make a change in my business? It's not just about looking at dashboards. A lot of dashboarding, applications out there. How do I make the best decision possible, leveraging all the data in my business, whether it's Salesforce data and my Sales Cloud or my Service Cloud, but also maybe ERP data or other data that I need to unify from different places. And then allow me to ask questions in real language, natural language, like I do. The great example I give people all the time is I just went on this trip with my daughter to Iceland. And I said, what should I do? Literally, where should we go? I've never been there. I don't have time to plan anything. And she's expecting me to deliver on this like, trip of a lifetime with, for 3 days. And it told me to take, this, I think it's called the Golden Circle. And it gave me a step-by-step of what to do.
Oh, that's awesome.
I just trusted it, but I, of course, validated it. And you can't quite do that yet with an enterprise. And you don't want to send your data, obviously, out into, the large language model, into the open internet. You have to have a trusted foundation. And so that's the journey that we need to get to, which is how do we help businesses experience something similar to what you see today and which consumers are very excited about. And that's our journey. And that's the future. It will change our industry. That's why it's really an amazing time to be in this space. And there's just tons of momentum.
It's unbelievable to have a conversation with data and in real time get more contextual intelligence to make better, more informed decisions. It's such a great time to be in technology. For those of us who've been using data for 30 some odd years in our career, it's just stunning. It's just stunning capabilities. Right.
Oh, no, I was going to say this is because of that type of data, you can go to precision decisions, right? That's what organizations really want to get to.
Right.
And, if you're Tableau ninja and you're out there trying to make things work, I mean, that's the way to go. I mean, everybody's trying to figure out, how to actually tell the story, right? Bringing the numbers to life, right? And that's the conversation piece. And the collaborative aspects of being able to do that is very different. As we go from the progression from augmentation to acceleration to automation to having agents and then advisors, we're going to see some very different workforce skills that are going to be important. So when and where we insert a human is going to be interesting. What is this AI-assisted workflows that are starting to pop up? Are you seeing benefits? Are you seeing gains? And then, of course, tell us what you're seeing with customers.
So, and it's interesting because I made a count. I spoke to over 30 customers in the month of June, where I was out really listening, trying to understand, what's working for you and what's not. And, everyone's experimenting, right? And we know that across the board. The amount of value that folks are getting, I won't name names, but ultimately, I think there's still some debate on what's the right amount of value. And that's why when we launched Pulse, we were actually going to make it generally available in November, and we pushed it to, I think, February. And the reason we did that is we wanted it to be useful for people. Similar story with our Einstein Copilot is, we wanted it to be trusted foundation, and we're making that now available now. You have to make sure that you are evolving these products in real time. And I think we are seeing, I think we've more than 3,000 or 4,000 people now, or customers, using our Tableau Pulse technology. It pushes information to you. It gives you the insights when you need it and where you need it. And I think we're still in the mode of what I'll call the human interacting with the kind of the digital worker. Of course, I think the longer term is, the digital worker will become better as the technology becomes better. But again, it's all about, a lot of times we get so focused on the worker, we forget that the cost of content generation will also go down in that process, right? So I think the human, i.e. myself in this situation, if I'm using a tool like Pulse, which I use every day, it helps me make decisions and it surfaces insights in real time, but I still have to ask questions, right? It doesn't prompt everything that's in my mind, of course. And so we're working together. It's a partnership with the technology. And I think, that's why we talk about, we just recently launched our Service Cloud Einstein Assistant as well, where we were able to talk about and help on a customer service experience that's a human and digital experience together over time. I'm sure you're going to see more and more of where the technology takes us. I do think some companies rush and some vendors rush into like, oh, we just have all this AI capability.
Yeah.
Is it useful? You need to make sure you're actually generating value for your customer, and also, of course, following up, right? And that's the constant drumbeat and cadence that we're on.
Ryan, this has been great. We're here with the CEO of Tableau, and you can follow him at RyanAytay. So thank you so much for being here, and of course, sharing your insights on leadership as well in terms of where data and AI are heading.
Thank you, Ryan.
Excellent. Great to be with you guys.
Thank you, sir. It's an awesome responsibility to lead a company and 4 million community members. And those members will make sure you don't drift away from, the brand promise and the overall promise of data. Okay, our next guest, John Mullins, PhD, London Business School, professor, author of Break the Rules, the 6 counter-conventional mindsets of entrepreneurs that can help anyone change the world. John, an award-winning teacher and scholar and one of the world's foremost thought leaders in entrepreneurship, John brings to his teaching and research 20 years of executive experience in high-growth retailing firms, including 2 ventures he founded and one that he took public. Since becoming an entrepreneurship professor, John has published, Ray, 5 books. More than 50 cases, more than 50 articles, Harvard Business Review, MIT Sloan Management Review, Wall Street Journal, and all these major publications. His research has won national and international awards. John is a frequent sought-after speaker and educator for audiences in entrepreneurship and venture capital. His newest book, I love it, Break the Rules, identifies what makes entrepreneurs entrepreneurial and provides a roadmap for how anyone can adopt and master these mindsets to challenge assumptions, overcome obstacles, mitigate risk, and perhaps change the world. You can follow John on X at John_W_Mullins, Mullins. Welcome, John, to DisrupTV.
Thank you, Vala. It's a pleasure to be with you guys.
Thank
Hey,
you,
John, we're really excited to have you here. And when you think about the rules and how people are breaking the rules, this is time to do it. And you emphasize this even more. You say, look, even though the economic climate is not very good, and some countries are just not going to grow, you say it's a great time to start a new business. Tell us why. So,
Ray, there's long history of great companies being founded in difficult economic times. HP is one of those, started in a garage in Palo Alto and in the middle of the Depression, for Pete's sake. Why on earth would you start a business then? But they've done okay, and there are tons of stories like that. And I think there are good reasons why times like this are good. Number one, big companies are kind of pulling in their horns these days, right? They're a little concerned about where the economy's going. Are we going to have that recession we've been talking about for years? What's going to happen with the Fed? They're pulling in their horns, so that means less competition. The other thing that's happening is big companies aren't promoting people. In fact, we've seen all these tech layoffs in the last few years. So it's a great time to steal great people. So it's a fantastic time to start a business.
John,
yeah, that. So, but yeah, go ahead.
John, why did you write the book? What was the impetus? I mean, obviously you're a prolific author and you write best-selling books, but why this one?
Well, Vala, if you ask that of my wife Donna, she'd say, "Well, John needed a project." But I think the real reason is I was kind of reflecting on the work that I'd done as a professor over the last 20 years and all the case studies and articles and stuff I'd done, and I was reflecting back to what was happening in academia when I got into academia after having been an entrepreneur for a long time.
How did you handle it? I mean, you entered a world of bureaucracy, a world of meetings and committees and peer reviews. I mean, that's like stifling. So,
well, yes and no. You'd be surprised that how much independence a faculty member at a top school has. We pretty much can do what we want. But I was looking back on my history and I said, there's all this research that said there's no difference between entrepreneurs and other successful business people. They couldn't find any differences. This is research done many years ago. And I said to myself, you know what? I know there's a difference between successful entrepreneurs and other successful business people. I wonder if I can figure out what that difference is. And as I look back at my body of work, I said, you know what the difference is? It's in their mindsets. Entrepreneurs gather information, they take in information, and then they react to that information in a different way than, frankly, big companies typically do, and differently than we in business schools like mine sometimes teach.
Okay, and you wrote about 6 mindset. Did you start off with and grow to 6? Did you have a larger?
No. Well, I started off with 0. I said, okay, so okay. I think entrepreneurs react differently. So first of all, what's a mindset? A mindset it lives up here in our head, but it's the habits, the attitudes, and the dispositions we have that when something comes our way, like opportunities, as we call them in the entrepreneurship world, those habits and dispositions drive how we're going to react to that information. And that's what's different about entrepreneurs. So I started to study and see if I could find those differences. And I found 6 of them, not 7, not 5. I found 6. And the book's about those 6 and how anybody, not just an entrepreneur. So it's the first of my books that's really written for a wider audience. Most of my books have been written for entrepreneurs and people trying to grow their businesses, which is something I love. But this book's for a wider audience because we need people in all kinds of organizations to think more entrepreneurial today. And I hope this book will help them do that.
It's a great point, right? And I was going through it and I was trying to figure out which one was my favorite in terms of the 6 group lessons.
Or what's the most important one? Maybe we can,
Yeah, I was wondering what you thought was the most important lesson of the 6 that you think in terms of whether it was thinking or moving the needle or, learning how to actually say yes when people go no. What was your favorite and most important one that we should start with?
I think there are 2 that go kind of hand in hand, Ray, that I think are really crucial. One is what I call problem first, not product first logic. So as you guys know, having read the book, big companies are all about the product. So, we had Coke, then we had New Coke, we had Diet Coke. Now we got Coke Zero, Coke anything, right? They're all about the product, but good entrepreneurs are about the problem. Find a problem that a customer has that you can solve. And then related to that goes hand in hand with that, find a problem that's held by a very narrow target group of customers. You don't want to go solve a problem for everybody in China because everybody in China's got different problems. But if you could find a tiny group like Phil Knight and Bill Bowerman did in starting Nike, elite distance runners had a problem with running shoes that weren't made for distance runners who train on dirt paths and country roads. If you can find a narrow target market that's got a compelling problem, and they had a compelling problem, that's the problem first part of it, because they all get shin splints and they get sprained ankles from where they train. If you can do that and build some success in that narrow target market, then you learn some things. And once you learn those things, then you can say, okay, what are some other problems we can solve? And what are some other target markets we could serve? And of course, the Nike guys, after conquering running, it took a long time. They called John McEnroe and did tennis. And they called Michael Jordan, they did basketball, not too bad. But that wasn't the original vision. The original vision was make a better running shoe for elite distance runners. So that pair, I think.
That is so relevant because it was just in the Wall Street Journal talking about how Nike lost the running audience because they hadn't refocused in there. So you should check it out. It's actually live. It's actually live now. It's one of the most interesting, most read articles right now in the Wall Street Journal about how Nike lost runners.
Cool. Thanks, Ray. I haven't seen it.
Which one of the mindsets or the combination of the mindsets do you think best defines Nike's decision in 1984 when they went to recruit Michael Jordan to pivot or create a go-to-market campaign that says it's not about the shoe, it's about the person wearing the shoe. And if we can have the greatest rookie, not greatest rookie, but the greatest college player potentially as our main focal point, and we ignore the color regulations of the NBA, and we're going to come out and instead of all white with a black, red, and white, and pay the $5,000 fine per game. What type of this unconventional thinking Nike demonstrated by really making it about the person and not the product? And a follow-up question, a lot of folks that I admire who made the decision to leave big companies and pursue entrepreneurship as founders of startups or early employees, it seems like they were great at like risk-reward analysis. They realized that perhaps early in their career, they could afford the risk and the rewards could be amazing if they have equity and stake and skin in the game. Is the ability to understand risk-reward and this unconventional thinking of exposing yourself to not a safe place. We work at a startup, most of them fail.
No, that's not.
What is it about these entrepreneurs that gives them the grit and optimism to do what they do?
Well, I think what it is, Vala, that I've discovered, it's these mindsets. And one of the things these mindsets do for you is minimize risk. If you're only trying to build a shoe for elite distance runners, you can get really focused on what that customer needs. And companies like you or Salesforce, help companies of any size get that kind of focus. So these mindsets help you minimize risk. So one of the mindsets is asking for the cash from the customer and ride the float. Well, I tell the story in the book of Tesla. Everybody thinks Tesla is this big venture capital backed company. Most of the money came from the customers, for Pete's sake. When Elon Musk joined the founding team, he was not a founder. He joined the founding team. He said, guys, let's go see if we can sell some cars. They did a little roadshow in California and sold 100 Tesla Roadsters. They hadn't yet built one. They sold 100 of them for cash on the barrelhead tonight for $100,000 a piece. That's $10 million in the bank before you built the first car. That's what these entrepreneurs do, Vala. It's the mindsets, and that takes a ton of risk away, right? Because you're not going to build the cars and hope you can sell them. Yeah. You sold them already, and now you can sell them.
In 2008, I put $5,000 down for a car I didn't think I'd ever see, which I picked up in 2012. That's 5 years of float.
A Tesla Model S. That was an S. Well, interesting, when he did the Model 3, 500,000 customers put deposits down of $1,000 a piece. That's
not a bad raise.
$500 million in the bank with which to do the tooling, do the engineering. The rest is history.
I'm on the waiting list of Cybertruck, so I'm one of those folks.
A box on wheels, Vala, as I see him driving around.
Mad Max for the
really
AI
fast, really fast box on wheels.
Yeah, really fast. Yep.
Go ahead, Ray.
But speaking of chapters, I do want to go down, I think, deeper on one chapter. There's one that I thought was kind of very interesting, was really about why moving the needle doesn't even matter, right, for entrepreneurs. And it's a great question. Like, is moving the needle enough? Let's go deeper there.
Well, in big companies, you can't really do too much if it's not going to move the needle, because big companies don't want to mess around with little stuff, and perhaps righteously so. But let's go back to the Nike story. Elite distance runners who can run nearly a 4-minute mile. How large a market is that? Is that going to move the needle? No way it's going to move the needle, right? But so moving the needle is the wrong metric. But that's the thing we teach in big companies. Don't worry about moving the needle. Worry about finding a group of customers that's got a compelling problem that you can solve. And if you can do that, eventually you might find you've moved a very large needle. But it's not what you're trying to do on day one.
We talked with our first guest about AI. Certainly, generative AI has been an incredible innovation that so many have been exposed to, and with the promise of not just enhancing productivity and efficiency, but also turbocharging your creative skills. And where do you see, the future of startups, given emerging technologies like generative AI?
Well, we're seeing thousands of AI startups, of course, and lots of them are getting money from venture capitalists, because venture capitalists, as we know, are like lemmings. As soon as one VC's got an AI deal, all the other VCs, he's got one of those. I guess I've got to have one of those too, and they're all getting money because there's incredible potential here. I think the point that Ryan made about there has to be value delivered is the key point. And that's going to be a learning curve, just as it's a learning curve for every entrepreneur. You come up with an idea, you think you have a problem you can solve, but until you deliver value to a customer and the customer says, I love it, give me some more, you haven't done much. So I think the jury is still out on where the value is going to be from AI.
Wow. Well, this is a series of books that you've put out in the past, the New Business Road Test, and your book, Getting to Plan B. These are all essentials when you go to business schools, as people look at it. What's going on? How does this, where does it go from here? when you think about breaking the rules? Because I've got a series of books to go with. What do you plan to write about next? So now that we've broken all the
And I'm sure every book brought you tremendous joy. What are you hoping the readers walk away from when they read Break the Rules? Rebels like myself love to be encouraged to break things in a purposeful, deliberate way. But what do you hope with your fifth book that the reader is able to accomplish after they read Break the Rules?
Yeah, Val, I think that's a great question. And my hope here is that we get people in every kind of setting you can imagine, in big companies, in government, in NGOs, not just in entrepreneurial companies, to use 2 or 3 of these mindsets as things come their way, to enable them to become vastly more innovative than their organizations otherwise would. I think that's really the goal of this book, and that's why I wrote it. And you know, what's the next book? I don't know, Ray. After I wrote each book, I didn't know there was going to be another one, but then a problem came along that I thought a book could solve. And so after the new business road test, everybody was talking about business models in 2006, 7, 8, 9. You remember? I didn't think anybody knew what they were talking about when they used that phrase. I said we got to unpack that, and Randy Commissar and I did that. And so each book has been a response to a problem I've identified. When I identify another problem that needs a book to solve it, then maybe there'll be another book, but I can't tell you today what that might be.
Do the students, if you can think back 10 years ago, 5 years ago, present day, do you feel that your students are better equipped to adopt the 6 mindsets and break the rules?
Way better. I'll tell you
because
why.
because they're digital natives versus digital immigrants like myself. I wasn't born mobile, social, cloud, AI, but my son, who's 14, is all of that. I mean, the most indispensable apps he's using are powered by AI. He's a mobile, social, cloud.
Yeah, he grew up with it, and he can do stuff that you and I can't do. You know, that's just the way it's going to be. I think the world has changed a little bit. When I went to the UK in 2000, entrepreneurship was a dirty word. No parent wanted their kid to be an entrepreneur. You know, you do anything else, but don't be an entrepreneur. That has changed. Why has it changed? In part because of the role models. Richard Branson, Michael Dell, Steve Jobs, you know, it's a long, long list.
Sure. That's great.
But in part, it's because now there are so many tools that make it much easier and much less expensive to go start a business. And that's a big change.
You know, this is great. We're here with John Mullins, PhD, London Business School, LBS professor, and author of Break the Rules, the 6 counter-conventional mindsets of entrepreneurship that can help anyone change the world. You can follow him on X at John_W_Mullins. And of course, get his book out. It's been there. You can still get the first edition if you get it out on Amazon. So thanks for being on the show, John.
Thank you, guys. Sir. Great fun.
Great. Thank you. I love that. I love recipes.
He pioneered business models, right? We're all talking about here's a monetization model when it was really not a business model. And it was that cross piece, which was huge. So
we are so lucky to have, again, the best and brightest best-selling authors on DisrupTV. Leslie Zane, author of The Power of Instinct, The New Rules of Persuasion in Business and Life. Leslie's an award-winning marketeer, TEDx speaker, and authority in harnessing the instinctive mind to accelerate brand and business growth. Founder and CEO of Triggers, the first brand consultancy firm rooted in behavioral science, Leslie championed the primacy of instinctive mind in brand decisions. Credited with the discovery of brand connectome and growth triggers, her groundbreaking contributions have deepened our understandings of human decision-making and unlocking the elusive formula for accelerating brand and business growth. Leslie's an alumni of Yale, Harvard Business School, Bain Company, and recipient of the Congressional Woman of Distinction and Ogilvy Award. You can follow Leslie on X at Leslie, this is LIE_Zane, ZANE. Welcome, Leslie, to DisrupTV.
Thanks so much for having me, Vala and Ray. It's lovely to be here.
Great
conversation so far. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. And of course, we've been talking about the age of AI, but you're talking about the age of instinct, and that's very different. And so let's talk about what those markers are and how they define the era, and how can brands adapt as we make that transition.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we are in the age of instinct, and we know that just by looking at the tremendous growth of AI. The
Mm.
reason we have AI, by the way, is because scientists recognize that the brain is not a sequential machine. It's an analogic machine. It makes connections. And we at Triggers recognized this 30 years ago. And what you see behind me is actually the brand connectome, which is the series of connections that a brand makes in people's minds. It actually has physicality. A brand is known by the associations it keeps. And so we've been doing this a very long time, before behavioral science and all those terms were, part of our popular vernacular. But there's really a tremendous opportunity for businesses of all kinds, large and small, to drive their business much faster by leveraging these kinds of connections. And we can talk more about that as we go.
As you noted, living in the age of instinct, what makes a choice instinctive? And I was a former CMO before I joined Salesforce, running a company with almost $1 billion in revenue. And I'm trying to recall how often did I override data or the team input and just went with my instinct. Rebranding the company, I think I used my instinct. But I would say, being in the world of marketing and serving as CMO, I would say traditional marketing teams resist instinctual practices. So can you talk about what makes a choice instinctive, and then also help us marketeers be a bit more instinctive?
Yeah, so contrary to popular belief, I'm actually not telling chief marketing officers or marketers to use their instincts.
Oh, okay.
What I'm trying to do is to get everybody to understand the instinctive behavior of the customer or of the prospective customer.
Okay.
So think of the human mind as an iceberg, with conscious mind on the top and subconscious or instinctive or non-conscious mind under the waterline. It turns out that only 5% of the decisions that we make as human beings are conscious. The vast majority of our decisions are unconscious, instinctive. And what does instinct look like? It's that moment when you just reach for one brand over another. That's your go-to brand. You go into the supermarket, you're on a beeline. You're on autopilot looking for your go-to brands. You stick them in your cart and you walk out the door. If
Nope.
your brain didn't have the ability to make those snap decisions, you'd be in the supermarket all week. But this is not just applying to consumer decisions or CPG. It really applies to everything: B2B, B2C, pharmaceutical, healthcare, an RFP process, politics. I mean, really, everything in life sort of runs this way, that people ultimately make their decisions with their instinctive mind. It turns out that our conscious mind is very resistant to change. And that's what I was talking about before when I mentioned the fallacy of persuasion. The entire world of marketing today is still trying to force somebody essentially through their conscious mind to do what we want them to do. And there is a clash for two reasons. First of all, the conscious mind is resistant to change. It's skeptical. It sees you coming. It says, no, I'm not going to do that thing that you're telling me to do. And number two, the conscious mind only makes up 5% of the decisions. So wait a minute, we're spending 100% of our time, resources, and energy on only 5% of the decisions people make. That makes zero sense. Literally, marketing in this world is upside down. We need to be spending all of our time focused on the instinctive mind, which is where decisions actually get made. And the fascinating thing about this is that it's far more malleable, that instinctive mind, than the conscious mind. So the instinctive mind is the path of least resistance to the sale. And by the way, this is not just relevant to CMOs. This is relevant to everybody in the enterprise, particularly the CEO and the CFO, who need to drive revenue growth, because there is a direct connection between mind share, owning more physical real estate in the mind, and market share. In fact, you can't have more market share unless you have more mind share.
Wow, fascinating. Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense, right? And you talk about this intersection between brain science and instinct, right? And it's really taking away a lot of the old, I'd say, misunderstandings of persuasion. So why are those old rules defunct, and why does behavior science, instinct, and your new model take play?
So the rules of marketing, and there are a bunch of them. There are
Oh yeah.
10 rules in my book. What I do is I show you the old rules of marketing that we were all raised on. And there are a lot of them. Uniqueness is more important than familiarity. Your core customer is more important than the people you don't have. Those are the old rules. All of those old rules were developed at a time that we thought it was the conscious mind that was making the decisions. And people just didn't know any better back then.
But
So
it
we're
wasn't.
talking 50, 60 years of entrenched marketing rules that really pervade the Fortune 500. And honestly, I've been like one of these lone voices for 30 years trying to get people to pay attention and say, no, that's not the right way. There is a better way. There is this instinctive mind that actually is calling the shots. So I've had to in the companies that I work with, and I'm very, very fortunate at Triggers Brand Consulting. We work with the greatest companies in the world. We're slowly changing their worldview and helping them understand that leveraging the instinctive mind is going to be much easier for them, because essentially what you're doing when you do that is you're working with the mind instead of against it. And that's a much easier way. It means that you can make change and drive conversion faster, more easily, with less resources, all these good things that the financial folks in the company certainly care a lot about.
That's very cool. I'm looking at the cool structure behind you. And I'm inclined to ask the term that you coined. What is brand connectome? And how does it influence consumers' choices?
So the brand connectome are the connections that the brain makes to your brand. Think of it as the cumulative memories that have gotten glued to your brand in the mind of customers or prospective customers. And every brand has one. You have one. I have one. This show has one. Salesforce has one. Triggers has one. The books that you've talked about today, basically everything's a brand. And by the way, all of us are marketers because we're all selling something. And so what this is, the brand connectome, it's how the brand actually lives physically in the mind. It's a series of connections. It's a neural network. You can think of a brand like a seed that you plant in people's brains, in your audience's brains. And as you add positive associations, these pathways, neural pathways, get laid down. And what lives on those neural pathways are memories, associations, and hopefully positive ones. And little by little, your seed turns into a seedling if you feed it the right nutrients, the positive associations, and it lays down a root system. And as time goes on, hopefully your brand, your seed, turns into a full-grown tree. The moment that your tree is larger than the tree of your competition, people switch to your brand. It's literally as simple as that. You can't grow your business without that tree, that neural network physically growing in people's minds. And you can think of this like a game of Monopoly. Whoever owns the most physical real estate in the brain wins. So that's the game. We got to grow our brand connectomes, and every one of us is a gardener.
Leslie,
And
so much.
What's the sunlight, the water, the air? What helps grow from seed to tree? What accelerates that growth most? Is it beautiful products and services? Does it come down to you got to build something amazing and then people will grow affinity over time, or advocacy from others? How do you go from seed to tree the fastest?
Great question. So what lives on those neural pathways, on all of those branches, is lots of different assets. things that have gotten stored in people's memories about the brand. And it could be anything, to your point. It could be that my mother used it. I grew up with it in my household. It could be a person who influenced me. It could be the brand's expertise. It could be the benefits. It could be something experiential. So everything about the brand that has gotten stored in people's memories. And it's not necessarily the advertising, because sometimes the advertising goes in one ear and out the other. But anything that's sticky is sitting on that connectome. The question you asked is, how do I make the connectome grow? And the answer to that is growth triggers. So growth triggers are cognitive shortcuts in any of the five senses. But most of the time, as marketers, we spend our time thinking about visual and verbal triggers.
Sure.
And an example of a verbal trigger would be, just do it for Nike.
Yep.
An example of a visual trigger, an image trigger, would be the snow-capped mountain on the Aquafina bottled water. That is an image trigger.
Or eat more chicken. Eat more chicken from the cows at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. And visual triggers, image triggers, it turns out, are the stickiest. So they have the most penetration into memory structure. So if you are trying to grow your brand connectome and you're in the bottled water business, the snow-capped mountain is a wonderful thing, because think about all the associations that comes with that very little image, that succinct code or cue. It's packed with positive associations. Pure, pristine, eco-friendly, untouched by human hands, water from the glaciers. This is really perceived to be superior water. And so if I take that snow-capped mountain and I put it on my bottle, I'm now associating my brand with that idea that already exists in people's minds. And that's the beauty of it, because I'm leveraging the familiar, and the familiar is actually the path of least resistance as opposed to the unique.
As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about the brand connectome for DisrupTV. Ray, we need to think about our words, our logo, it seems like for us, the seed gets to tree based on the quality of guests like yourself that come on the show, but we don't have visuals, and we don't have, I don't think we have a slogan.
If you're nice to me, maybe I'll give you a little free consulting on the side.
We sure could use it. We have
no idea what we're doing. Someone explain that. Let us know.
Nobody does. No. I literally work for the biggest companies in the world, and most leaders don't know what drives their businesses. And let me be really clear. I am not talking about the obvious things, attributes. Everybody's tracking their attributes. Those attributes are meaningless. That's not what drives choice.
Yeah.
What drives choice is at a much deeper level. It's implicit barriers and drivers. If you don't know what the implicit barriers and drivers are in the unconscious mind, then your solution is incomplete. I don't know how you can develop a strategy without knowing what you're up against. You need to know what your growth target, the people you're trying to get, your prospective customers, what their implicit barriers and drivers are, because only then can you create a strategy and a communications, a brand strategy, positioning strategy to take down those implicit barriers. Otherwise, you're not going to get growth. Sure, you could give people a discount or a coupon and you could get a temporary bump, but that's going to be fleeting. The only way to really drive instinctive brand behavior, where people are choosing your brand over and over again like a flywheel, is if you grow that brand connectome, and you can only do that if you take down the negative associations and take down the barriers.
Wow. We're here with Leslie Zane, author of The Power of Instinct, The New Rules of Persuasion in Business and Life. You can follow her on X at Leslie_Zane, ZANE. Thank you for being on the show, and congratulations on a wonderful book.
Yeah, thank you so much.
That was
awesome.
Great being here. Great conversation. Thank you.
That was, I can honestly say we could have had an hour discussion with all three guests. I have so many questions, Ryan, John, Leslie, but Ray, summarize the show in 30 seconds for us.
Oh my God, how do we do that? Everybody
loves data. Let's start
Everybody
there.
loves-
Everybody
everybody
loves
loves
good
data.
data.
No, I say what we learned in this world is really to be successful and have a successful brand. I mean, you have to understand your community, and listening in deeply is really important. Most software companies do outbound marketing. Most people build, they build a team, they build some core customers that love them, but really 4 million strong is actually a pretty big group of folks that actually
Tableau.
use the product. And so Tableau has been a great job there. And of course, it's going to be important as we figure out what happens in that world of AI. But also when we talk to John, it's very, very different, right? We're trying to figure out like, what's that mindset? You could be in a large company, you could be an entrepreneur, but what do you need to do to move the needle? And really, there's 6 things that every executive could do, from a startup to Fortune 500 to really reinvigorate growth. We're going to be in a challenge for the next 2 to 3 years where it's all about cost cutting, but we also have to grow. No one's cost cut their way to success or to a larger company. And so we're going to be seeing that mindset in place. But this is interesting on the instinct piece, because for me, I think what most organizations don't realize and most leaders don't realize is that, there's instinct. And then, of course, there's your ability to actually tap into that instinct to make that right decision. And I think, when you look at the standing rules of persuasion and you think about the new types of rules and how emotion plays a role in this, I think it's really important to think about where behavior-based marketing plays a role and how you can really leverage that and leverage your instinct to really change the way people perceive your brand, as well as, how other people perceive yourself. So.
You are better than ChatGPT 4.5. You're
for now. The new version is going to outdo me. So I'm totally
I don't know. I mean, God, that was an awesome summary. Okay. Well, thank you for watching our show today. We're going to take next week off again due to 4th of July holiday. Celebrate our independence and watch fireworks and eat lots of burgers and dogs. And we'll be back July 12th. I have no idea how Ray and I are going to host our July 12th show, because we have 5 big brains on the show. That's the best way I can describe it. We have Dr. David Bray, Distinguished Fellow, Stimson Center and Business Executive for National Security. Dr. Bray has been a frequent guest on our show, Big Brain. Miriam Vogel, President and CEO of Equal AI. Mark Minovich, Global Technology Executive, AI Strategist, and author of Our Planet Powered by AI, huge brain. And Teresa Carlson, General Catalyst Advisor, PagerDuty Board Member, FinTech AI Board Member, Investor, and Vice Chair of the White House Historical Association, also an investor. Teresa has been on the show in the past, a huge mind. And Bonnie Hayden Chang, author of The Return on Kindness. So Ray, I don't know how we're going to interview 5 extraordinary people in an hour, but we'll do our best.
We will do our best. And if you're watching carefully, watch for some interesting announcements from Constellation on the 1st and on the 2nd. A big AI announcement coming out July 2nd.
Oh, wow.
So
4th of July, big AI announcement. This is
big
great.
AI
Breaking news here on DisrupTV.
Breaking news. So.
All right. Well, if it's Friday, it's Disrupt. Thank you for watching. Thank you for recommending guests. And thank you for being connection with our DisrupTV show and brand. We'll see you.
We'll see our guests in the green room. Take care.
See you. Bye.